let's do this. Um, what's up, everybody? This is our first take out of podcast. We've never done this before. We're doing it over Zoom. So welcome. Right now, I think I'm gonna call it why, how, what, because that's how humans make decisions, and we can get into that maybe in a whole different podcast. But this is my best friend Austin. A lot of you know who he is. What's
What's
up,
up?
Austin?
What's up?
We have done just about everything together. We make music together. We've worked countless jobs together. And now we're doing this together. So anyway, purpose of today, this series is going to be called Random Topics, where the guest brings the topic to the podcast and we discuss it. So Austin, anything you got for us before we get into that?
Nah, bro. I think we should just get it rolling.
All right. Well, what do you want to talk about today?
Man, I think that we should talk about something I was reading into today. Something that kind of goes along with a lot of current events that's been happening lately. So today in Seattle, I don't know if you've heard what's been going on out there, but everything with the Antifa protest and the Black Lives Matter movement has been escalating pretty crazy. Been doing a lot of really good things. A lot of positive outcomes are coming from that, regardless of what people want to think about it. Change is happening, and there's a lot of growth been going on. But something that I actually found interesting today, I saw in Seattle, particularly, the Antifa protesters, they took over a police precinct. So now the police have retreated from one of their stations in downtown Seattle. It's now been renamed as far as the sign on the front of it goes, and it actually says the people instead of the police. And so it's a big movement that's going on right now. I think it's really cool. I think it's a great thing that our communities are coming together in order to make change in something that people believe in. But particularly the one in Seattle with the story that I'm talking about, they now have a 6-block perimeter. They're doing armed patrol to make sure that no cops are in, and a lot of people are taking it upon themselves to secure that for the people and make sure that they have a safe place to protest. They have a safe place to go and to share their views and to speak their mind. And they're actually winning. And Donald Trump has commented on it, saying a lot of negative things. But
As expected.
regardless of what yeah, of course, and that's usually what he ends up doing. But regardless of what the media and everything is portraying out there, there's been a lot of positive things that are coming out of it. And it's like I said, it's a place for people that have these views and people that want to speak their mind, and they can go, and now they have a safe spot where they're not going to be tear gassed, and they're not going to be pepper sprayed, and they're not going to be beat up and things like that. Which is a lot of what people are worried about when they're going out to protest and when they're going out because they want to make a change and they want to do it in a positive way. But you also have these different groups of people that are going through and they're inciting different types of violence, and they're antagonizing. And what happens with it is that when you see somebody coming, and one person can ruin it for everybody, because all it takes is one person to throw something or one person to break something, and now the police and whoever's enforcing these laws to come in, and they can now pretty much have free reign to do whatever they want in order to shut this down. And so all the people that are there actually being peaceful and actually protesting and actually doing the things that are positive, they end up losing their voice.
No doubt. I think a lot of people would say they're not down with them taking over the police precinct. And then the immediate argument is, well, it gives them somewhere safe to protest. Well, then the immediate argument to that is they should peacefully protest somewhere else. And then we immediately say back, right, that's the point. is we keep getting tear gas. We keep getting shot with rubber bullets. That old man that got pushed, those cops, can you validate this for me? Did you hear that those cops got off?
So I
You know
had
what I'm
seen
talking
that they
about,
were
the old
placed
man?
on leave. Yeah, the one he hit the back of his head, he was bleeding.
Yeah, so I saw CNN breaking news today. Mind you, I didn't look into it too much, but I saw that the cops went to trial and they pled not guilty, and that's how they were deemed. That was the verdict. Not
Yeah.
guilty of assault or whatever.
So I guess I'm a little bit behind. I wasn't caught up and informed that heavily. The last thing I had seen was when they were placed on leave. The two cops that were actually physically involved in the incident were placed on leave, and then I saw the entire the response team that was associated with them. They all ended up walking out on their job in their own form of protest. And I hadn't seen, I guess, the article that you had seen about them today.
Now they walked out on their job, but they walked out on riot control. They didn't stop being police officers.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, for me, that was an important distinction. I had thought that they had stopped being police officers. And anyway.
Yeah.
So, when it comes to like now that the police station says the people, right? I'm sure that a lot of people see that as vandalism. What say you to that?
I would say that I mean it probably is vandalism, but the point is the bigger picture. It's the message that they're trying to portray is that the majority rules in favor of the people. When you have something that's considered a democracy or that you want to label a democracy, is the idea is that the people, the individuals, and the citizens that are in this society are the ones that have the voice and the ones that get to say so. And I think that it's been overwhelmingly clear that the side of the majority of society is on the side of the people rather than on the side of the institution. The institution has been deemed unfair and unjust, and in my opinion, rightly so in a lot of ways. I think that you can take a negative perspective of whatever you want to call it, but I think that it's symbolism. I think that saying that it's the people station instead of the police station or whatever they had called it is a symbol of really the fact that people feel like that they don't have any power and that they don't have any voice, they don't have any say so in what's going on right now. And I think this entire movement is a very big example of that, because you can see how many people are out in the streets, you can see how many people are out protesting, you can see how many people are out, whether they're doing it the right way or the wrong way. You can see how many people are unsatisfied with the current system. And unfortunately, it's a few people that are actually in power that have been making the rules and making the laws and making this system work, which, in my opinion, isn't the idea of democracy.
No doubt. So I saw this awesome video of. Hang on, I want to take a minute to point this out. Actually, so this whole time I've kind of been coming at you from like a very conservative perspective, just asking you questions from that perspective. Not that that's how I describe myself at all. But the colors we're wearing is kind of hilarious.
No doubt. We got that duality going.
It wasn't planned at all. But anyway, so what this African American girl, lady, woman was saying was, people. So she was talking about how there's rioters, there's looters, and there's protesters. There's three type of people out there, right? And people that are mad about them going and looting. She was like, well, let's go with that. She said, why is their poverty so low? Why is the financial gap so large between those types of people and the people that don't feel the need to do that they literally feel the need to go loot? She said, that's a problem. Excuse me, this beer is getting me. And then she continued and she said, she just really put things in perspective. She said, "What if we played a game of Monopoly and for 400 games, not only did I not let you play, but or play for yourself, but you had to play and you had to play on behalf of me. You had to earn money and do good things for me, and you had to do whatever I said, and and then once you were allowed to play, every time that you did something that I didn't like, I just burned up all your money. I burned up everything that you did." And she said that's what happened in Rosewood. And do you know the Rosewood story?
Hmm.
For those who don't
Same
know,
thing. Same thing in Oklahoma.
yeah, for those who don't know the Rosewood story, this is crazy. It was Black Wall Street. I mean, there were city blocks, many like I think they destroyed like 30 blocks by the time it was all done of like 99% owned Black businesses. I mean, and these people were borderline wealthy. They had pianos in their house. They were upper middle class, and over a very intentional misunderstanding by racist white people, um, they accused someone of murder or something like that in the Black community, and then people came in from all over the place, even from upstate, downstate, different states, and burned all of it up.
Yeah,
And
and what a lot of people don't know is they actually had bombs that were dropped from airplanes, like military style. It was a
yeah,
very large scale. It wasn't just a couple people who thought that they were out doing something. It was coordinated. It was funded by somebody. I mean, it wasn't just
I
one
mean, who
guy
has
with some
bombs?
gun
Who has bombs? Who
and
who's
airplanes. Who
who
has airplanes?
who has airplanes and bombs? I think we know the answer to who has that. It's certainly not civilians. And then the KKK and a lot of their leaders get into leadership and political roles and implement a lot of systemic racism, which no one is arguing nowadays, except maybe racists. Maybe they're not even arguing. I think they're just trying to advocate to keep it in place. But no one's confused about it. It's definitely here. And so not only did all that happen, now there's a system in place that is kind of rigged against a whole community here. And anyway, so her point at the end of the video, she said, people get upset about us destroying our own community. She said, it's not ours. We don't own anything. She said, if anything, people are, she said, if anything, people are lucky that Black people are looking for equality and not revenge.
I've
I
seen
just
the
thought that
video
was powerful.
you talked about. Yeah.
I don't agree. I don't disagree necessarily, or at least I'm not making a stance on it. But, I think it brings a lot of perspective into what's really going on. Now, if people are out there simply just to see the world burn, I mean, if you're going to burn something, have a purpose behind it, for God's sake. But so I don't think people should be going out there to burn things for like just any reason at all. I don't think that's cool. But I think if we need to stop looking so much at what's happening and why it's happening,
Hmm.
is what I think.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to why it's happening is a lot of the idea of what we call democracy is not real democracy, and a lot of people who are represented here don't actually have a voice, and a lot of people should be represented don't have representation. They don't have any power or any control of what they're really doing, and yeah, racism is a big part of it. Racism is a terrible thing. It's very systemic in a lot of different facets of our life, but I think that it's not just systemic racism. I know for me personally, I've never experienced systemic racism, being a white person and being a male. I guess I kind of got the lucky cards on both of those sides for how things have gone. But at the same time, it's the idea that people who are in power aren't held accountable. People who have the power aren't representative of the actual population, and that's going to be a problem forever until it gets changed. And it's a great thing that we're coming together against racism. It's a great thing that we're coming together against prejudice, and I think that it's going to continue to grow until the entire population feels represented and feels like they have an equal say in what's going on. I think that racism is a very large part of it, but I don't think that's the entire story either. I think that just the fact that people who have the authority without having any accountability is a very big problem, regardless of who it is and who it's not. because of the fact that you have somebody who's like a police officer, and they're in a position of a lot of authority, right? Where they can tell people what to do. They can pretty much make orders and demands, and you're in a position where you have to comply with pretty much anything that they say, and there's no repercussions for whenever they take advantage of that situation. There's no consequences that are actually going to be held to the same standard that it would be as a citizen. Like if you and I were to do a lot of the things that a police officer can do, we would be receiving a lot harsher penalties. We'd be things like that. In the fact of that, just because we're not the cops, and it is a thing where, you know, being a cop is a very dynamic job. It's a different setting when you're put in position to enforce the laws. It's a different setting when you're put in position to pretty much have control over people's lives every single day. And I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing until you get people who are going to like I said, take advantage of that. And one thing that I learned when I was real young is power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely, which means that when you have things that are power and authority that is unlimited, so will the corruption in a direct correlation.
So simply, we need to give less power to the police, right? That starts with demilitarization, some defunding, and that's what people don't understand about defund the police is we're not actually necessarily asking you to get rid of the police entirely, but we are asking you to to take a lot of their guns away. Maybe not even all of them, but a lot of them. A lot of their grenades and just literally chemical warfare, tear gas, like they don't need a lot of the stuff that they have. And something that I saw today on Facebook, you can call it a meme if you want, but it was about nurses, and it said nurses have to control all sorts of psychotic, drugged up, violent, crazy individuals, and they never do it by crushing somebody's windpipe, ever. You know, and in fact, you know, I would care to think that if some nurses, and this isn't a sexual or a sexist comment, I should say, I'm saying if some nurses can handle some belligerent, violent, giant dude, why is this an issue with the police?
Yeah, I mean, the whole idea with defund the police, when you're looking at where you're going to be putting money, I've seen the $6 billion budget with the NYPD, the New York Police Department.
Crazy.
It's
insane.
And it is a much more it's a much larger population than other places and things like that. But the idea is that if you can put more of that money into things like education and things like mental health and things like addict rehabilitation and things like that, then you won't necessarily need all the funding. And not that I think that they need $6 billion anyways, but whatever that might happen to be in your local area, you can take a lot of that and redirect those funds into something that comes out in a more positive way. I think that law enforcement is necessary. I think that protection of the citizens is a good thing. I wouldn't necessarily support the fact of abolishing all police, and I don't think that that's what the movement is about. I think that it's the idea of that if you're redirecting a lot of those resources into things that are more preventative than reactive, then you're going to have much better outcomes within your society.
That's a great point. You know, a lot of what I heard about bringing social workers, you know, and like basically the idea that we don't need the police to arrive at every situation. They don't need to be the people that show up in every time there's an issue with society, right? And I think that's what the big movement is about. And if anyone's paying attention at all to social media right now, we're seeing places like Iceland, and all sorts of other places that, you know, police don't even wear body armor out in the streets. They just wear, you know, pretty normal uniforms, and, you know, police and people have a very good relationship, and no one is seems to be upset or scared whenever they're around. And even as a white person, when a cop drives by me, I get nervous. You know? And I
Yeah,
think that's a common thing. I think everyone feels that. And beyond that, you know, police brutality, like there's a lot of arguments going on right now about you know, oh well, white people get, you know, abused by the police too, and the African American response is, well, why aren't you guys mad then? You know, well, trust me, there's plenty of us that are mad about it. You know, we're not happy about it.
definitely.
You know, I'm not saying I'm not raising the Me Too flag. That's not what I'm doing at all. I'm saying I'm here for this movement because I agree with that motion. That police brutality is definitely an issue.
And I think that what a lot of people that are on the wrong side of this argument don't understand is that equality for any other people, whether it's people of color of all different races and ethnicities, whether it's people of color or whether it's women or whether it's trans or whether it's gay rights and things like that. Giving other people rights doesn't take our rights away. Um, when you are in the majority, a lot of people feel threatened by that, and it and making equality doesn't mean you're switching superiority.
Yeah, and that shouldn't even be something we're worried about anyway, in my opinion. But I think that is what they're worried about, those who are worried about it.
Yeah, definitely. But think also, I mean, it's even the entire idea of it is larger than just the police, and the police are the ones that are in your communities every day, and the police are the ones that a lot of people have bad relationships and stuff like that. But the idea of equality and accountability and a lot of these ideas, it goes bigger than that. I don't know if you've ever heard of politicians that have been convicted as sex offenders and been put on a lighter sentence than average citizen would be. You even have cases where people are like district attorneys and things like that, and they have different situations in their life that they run into, and they don't have to deal with the same consequences. And that's really the issue here, because you'd realize that a lot of these things wouldn't happen if they didn't feel that immunity, that invincibility that comes with whatever position that they're holding.
Right. If they knew there'd be some consequences for being shitheads, they'd not be that way, right?
Yep.
But since they know that there's not, then why would they have any reason to behave otherwise?
Yeah, and a lot of them feel that wall of protection from whatever power or whatever that they've built up, and with that protection they feel like they can go and do whatever they feel like they need to do. And the real idea is that if you give, it's one thing that you defund the police, or you take away authority from the police or whatever like that. But in the example that you were saying, certain situations where maybe a social worker or something like that, or some kind of counseling or whatever would be there, you're taking authority from one place and putting it to another place. So I don't necessarily think that the authority is the issue. I think that the accountability that comes with authority is the issue. It's like Spider-Man, right? With great power comes great responsibility. But a lot of people just get a lot of power and don't have to be held responsible for what they do with it.
That's fair. So, because if the police didn't misuse all the power and authority they have, then we wouldn't be so upset about them having so much, right?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, if they use their authority for things that were actually um, intended for, because there's police that protect people every day. There's people who get murdered and robbed and raped and beat up and jumped and whatever it is, and there's crimes that happen, and that's why I say I don't necessarily think that law enforcement as an idea is a bad thing. I don't think that
Shout out
police
to the good
idea
cops,
is a
right?
bad thing. I just think that yeah, right. I know that there are plenty of people that are good cops, but the issue is, I think it was a Chris Rock comedy special, and it said, basically he said, yeah, like you put this down to, oh, it's a few bad apples, right? And you say the majority of police are bad, right? The majority are not bad. The majority of police are good, and it's the few bad apples that stain the whole name. And he said, some jobs you can't have bad apples. And he was joking when he said it, but he was serious. He said if you got on an airplane and he said, yeah, well, most of our pilots can land, how comfortable would you feel with that airplane? Most of them, right? But you got a few bad apples. Like, that's not a good excuse. That's not justification
Right.
for what you're doing. So the idea is that if you have police and you have the proper authority that police need, without overextending that reach, and then you take in extensive training, and you take in people who are actually qualified in things that are not just like qualified of like, can you beat this person up, or can you put this person in handcuffs, or can you shoot your gun well, but qualified in things like de-escalation, and qualified in things like mental health, and qualified in things like family and community orientation and things like that. I think that's another positive thing that can come out of that, because the idea is not every single cop is a killer. Not every single cop is a racist. Cops are people. And so you have a wide spectrum of people, just like you do in anything. You have you have doctors who are good people, and doctors who are not so good people. You have any profession, lawyers who are good people, and lawyers who are not so good people. And the idea is that you want to be able to have the proper qualifications, and have the proper screening and the proper training, in order to actually handle those situations, because at the end of the day, it's people. You can't say like all cops are anything, good or bad. Um,
Well, just like you
Not to
can't say
defend
all
any of the things that
protesters
have gone on.
are this and that, right? Like
Exactly.
we have some bad apples out in the protesting fields, right? Some people who are really messing up the image for the people who are out there with a peaceful message, you know?
Yep. And unfortunately, there are certain professions where that's okay, and in other professions, it's gotten out of control.
And in professions where that's not okay, is how long do cops train? Like 24 weeks?
Um, I think I don't know, honestly. I'm sure it varies depending on the department, the state regulations, and things like that. Cops are local government, so um, a lot of people are saying like, oh well, cops don't need college degrees. Some cops do need 4-year degrees in certain places. I know we came from the Dallas area, and a lot of the police departments out there require a 4-year degree. So there are different specifications, different training, and things like that different places have to go through. But I know that none of them are as qualified as a doctor or a lawyer. And I think that if somebody has to go to 7 years of school in order to practice the law, I think that they should have an equal amount of training, and if they're going to be enforcing the law.
Wow. So you think master's degree level of education should be required for law enforcement?
I wouldn't say always formal education, but as far as the hours and the time put into it, and the educating aspect of it, yes, I don't think that somebody who goes and gets a economics degree is going to be a great cop just because you have a degree. But the idea is that if somebody has to put in this amount of training in order to do their profession properly, then that's what should be required for them, and whatever that amount is. Now, I'm not a sociologist or scientist or anything like that can actually say like, oh, cops should have 7 years of training versus 6 or versus 8. That's for people who are higher pay grade than I am. But in my opinion, they should have at least enough that they should be more sufficient than they are.
No doubt. In places, these other countries where they have very minimal murders by police, and police brutality is not really an issue much at all, cops have 2 years of training minimum. Some of them have 3 years of training. That may or may not be on top of university education.
Yeah.
And you know, so I think then the question becomes, what do we do about police that are now police? You know, let's say we change all that and we require all this extra training. What happens to police today? What are they grandfathered in? They don't need to go through this training, or what?
I mean, then you just stuck with the same thing that we got now. I think that's why a lot of police are the way that they are, because reform has happened before, and actually it's happened recently in a lot of places. The way that they approach the hiring process, the training process, the education process for police officers. But the idea, if you're grandfathered in, then that means that you skip all of that and you're still with the same authority and the same power. Now I think that things would change if they had a higher level of accountability. See, most police have what's called qualified immunity.
Yep.
So even if you take a cop without more training, but you tell them, hey, if you shoot somebody, you're going to be on trial for murder, they're going to look at things differently as well. So I think that it's going to be a combination of a lot of different things. I don't think it's so simple as one answer for anybody, but and that's kind of why things have progressed the way they are, because if it was a simple answer, it would have already been done.
So
But I don't know if you remember, a couple years ago, there was an incident of Starbucks where there was two black guys, and they were sitting in a Starbucks, and they were using the Wi-Fi to work on either work or school or something that was 100% legitimate, and things that everybody goes to Starbucks for all the time, and they ended up the police had been called on them because they didn't purchase anything. And I don't know if you're experienced with this, but I know I've been to Starbucks a million times without actually buying anything. I used to hold meetings for my own business at Starbucks. I would interview people for my own marketing team at Starbucks, and I would do things like that at Starbucks, and I never bought anything. I would go there to use the Wi-Fi, I'd go there to use the tables, and a lot of times it
I've
was
gone to
cool.
Starbucks just to raise hell.
Right, which isn't at all what they were even trying
I
to
didn't
do.
get
They
kicked
were
out.
peaceful. They weren't disrupting anybody. And what happened is Starbucks ended up closing all of their stores for 7 days, and everybody had to go through a specific type of training. They had a name for it, but it was basically like uh, anti-prejudice training. They had to go to a class and learn
I
about.
remember this. Yeah,
Right,
I
right.
remember this now. Yeah,
And
that was crazy.
And so if Starbucks employees can't get grandfathered in, and skip that extra training, I don't think that police should be able to either.
Ooh, that's powerful words. It's powerful word. I like that. I like that. That's good. All right. Well, Zoom is actually telling us that we're running out of time. I don't know what that's about. Um, Final thoughts? Anything else?
Final thoughts, man. I just want to go ahead and shout out everybody that's been using their platform for positivity, people that have been using their voice and actually making change. I think that the power belongs to the people. I think that that's what it makes America a really great place, and I think people should continue to speak out against what, or speak out in favor for what they believe in, speak out against injustice. Um, I'm really proud of where I'm at as far as being in a generation of people who aren't afraid to use their voice, and people who aren't afraid of all the possible consequences that can come out with them. And shout out to everybody that's protesting. Shout out to everybody that's supportive, because we're going in the right direction as a country, as a society, and just as human beings, as all race.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely big shout out to people who are trying to make a change for positive change. For those of you that are mad right now, understand that we're here to to share ideas and to have open conversation. Um, the wisest person in the world will tell you that he knows nothing at all. You know, we do not know what it's like to be anybody except for ourselves. You're entitled to your own opinion, but they're kind of like assholes. Everyone has one, and they pretty much stink all the time. But we do want to exchange those opinions, as smelly as they are, and talk about them and see what others have to say without getting mad, and seeing what other people have to say. Because if you confine yourself to your own thoughts and mentality and wisdom, then if anything, you're going backwards. You're probably doing worse than just standing still. So, all right,
And
awesome. Well,
feel
thank
free
you.
to comment. Feel free to reach out. I'd love to have conversation. I love to expand my own perspective, whether that's an argumentative perspective or whether you're just agreeing with me. I think that feedback is always helpful, and I'm always open-minded to learning something new. So follow me on Twitter, Indigo Mac with 2 C's. DM me, private message me, and we can get into some good productive conversation and start using the intellectual side of this to make good change.
Yes, sir. All right, awesome. Thank you for this time, man.
For sure, man. Have a good night.
Let's get it.